my name's Dana and I'm a senior member of Commedia Arte of Mobile. And today I'm going to be speaking to you about developing your character. So it's easy for us as actors to want to say, oh, how would I react to that? Or, what would I feel in that situation? But that's not actually what we need to do, because we're not portraying ourselves, we're portraying someone else. And we want that person to be as real as possible. So we really need to develop that character. So I'm going to talk about how we're going to do that. So very first thing you need to do is to get to know your character. And if you see me looking off, I apologize. My notes are out there. I would like to think that I have this all organized in my brain, but I really don't. I had to write it down and have an outline for myself. So forgive me if I look over to the side. Anyway, getting to know your character. That's how we start. There's a couple ways that we do this. The first thing we do is we look at what the script says about the character. First thing we're going to look at in the script is we're going to look at what other characters say about our character. And we use those as clues. Of course, you also have to take into consideration who the character is, how they feel about the character, are they lying about the character, are they those things go into it as well. But as a basis, as a starting point, we've got to look at what the other characters say about your character. And the next part of that is looking at the script to see what our character says about himself or herself, because that can be very telling about a character. So it's important to look at comments, are they self-degrading? Are they overly confident? Are they, what does that character say about themselves? What kind of clues do we get from what the character says about themselves? Are they even accurate, what they say about themselves? These are things we need to look at and we need to consider when we're starting that development, or starting to look at who this character is. The next thing we're going to look at is demographics. Demographics can actually be an important part of getting to know your character. So first there's the basic info. We have name, age, religion, etc., etc. Age, obviously an 11-year-old is not going to behave the same as a 17-year-old, or a 50-year-old is not going to act the same as a 25-year-old. So these things are important in getting to know your character. The next part of demographics that we need to look at are the geographic and cultural aspects of it. When you say geographic, of course, we're talking about wherever they're from. If they're, what is their city, what is their town, country, what continent are they from, what region are they from, what planet are they from, depending on, the character you're playing. We've had alien characters in our shows before, so that's an important part of it, the geography, the location of where they're from. And then also the cultural aspects. And cultural aspects very often are tied to the geographical aspect of it, but not always. Yes, sometimes when we're talking about cultural demographics, we're talking about, are they Southern, are they Northern, are they Midwestern, are they from the Northeast? And those can be cultures that you need to look at. In fact, are cultures that you need to look at, but there are other cultures that you need to look at as well, certain populations. For instance, hearing impaired people have a culture all their own. Goth kids have a culture that's all their own. Parents have a culture of their own. You don't typically see kids acting like their parents or parents acting like their kids. So culture can it can be very diverse. Nationalities, ethnicities, many different things can be encompassed, or not encompassed, but it's important to look at cultures, many different types of cultures. And people can be involved in more than one culture. You can have a golf kid that lives in Alabama. You can have a hearing impaired person that lives in Alabama or New York or, wherever the case may be. And those are just examples, again. But it's important to remember that you could have more than one culture, and you have to know how those cultures mix, and at least for this character. So, I just dropped a page. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So the next thing we're talking about is getting your character started. There we go. Getting your character started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about when we actually get started with our character is using the information you have collected to build your character. So this is where the actual character development is going to start. Once you've gotten to know your character, you're going to build your character. So the first thing you need to do is, using the information you have collected, you need to make decisions about how your character would behave and how your character would react in different circumstances, based on the information that you have collected. So this is where you start the decision-making process of how would this character behave here, what would they think, what would they do, how would they react. And you need to use the info that you've collected to help you get started with that. Okay, the next thing you're going to look at is what type of mannerisms is that character going to have. So you've decided, what kind of behaviors they're going to have, what kind of reactions they're going to have in certain situations. So what are their mannerisms? And by mannerisms, we're talking about little habits that individuals have. This is very important for the development of your character as an individual, so they don't just look like every other character. If you hear sounds in the background, I apologize. It's my dog being naughty. So figure out those mannerisms. Do you have a character that's allergic to dust? Do they sneeze every time they go in somebody's house because they have an allergy? Or, just little things. The way a character moves, a nervous fidget they have, just anything that that will help you to build that character and would be appropriate for your character. Don't just make up something just to have a mannerism, but have a reason for it. That's very important when you're building your character, to have a reason for it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is building your character further from there. Okay, we're going to take everything you've done so far, and we're going to work backwards to establish your character's background. And the way we're going to do that, sorry, my dog's trying to make an appearance. The way we're going to do that, I'm sorry, I lost my place, is we're going to ask questions about why the character makes the decisions they make. And I'll give you an example of that. Okay, a character flinches when someone raises their arm. Okay, you've already decided that. So why does the character flinch? Does the character flinch because they've been hit before? Do they flinch because they're just a very anxious person and it just startles them? Make decisions, ask questions about these actions and reactions and mannerisms, and work backwards from there to figure out where your character's coming from. Why does that character do that? We don't just, and that's how you develop your background history for the character. We don't just make up a story because, oh, this is going to sound cool. No, we need to actually base that off of something. So we work backwards that way by asking those questions. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use our voice. And I know you're probably saying, of course we use our voice. It's acting. You have to use your voice. But you actually have to think of it very specifically. What is going to be the best way for you to utilize your voice that's going to make sense for this character? How high does this character speak? How low do they speak? The deepness of their voice. Do they have a high pitch? What's the pitch of their voice? What's the tone of their voice? What's the mood of their voice? What's the speed of their speech? For example, two little teenage girls talking on the telephone. They're probably going to be giggling a lot, probably high pitched, talking quickly. Because they're excited. That happens a lot with teenage girls. But let me say this, you do have to be very, very careful that you don't stereotype when you do this. Because, those girls might not be those types of girls. They may be more deep and more intellectual. They may speak more slowly. They may be more sarcastic. It just depends on the individual character. So that's a part of it as well. Make sure you don't stereotype. I was just using that as an example. I'm sorry, it's getting kind of sunny. Sun's moving. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to say is take all of these things that I've spoken about and continue to build your character. You're going to be learning new things about your character constantly. Your character will take on a life of its own and will grow. And this is just your basis, your starting point when you develop a character. And you just need to keep doing this the entire time you're working on it, and things may change about what you've decided about your character as you learn more and grow more about your character. So don't be scared of that if that happens. That's a good thing. That's how we learn more about our character. So just continue in everything you've done and continue to learn your character and grow as you develop it. And that's pretty much it. Those are just very basic character development points. I hope it's helpful for you, and thank you so much for watching.